This is Mel Allen. Coming up on This Week in Baseball, Raiders of the New West rack up a string of wins with an old formula: pitching and more pitching. The original Hammerin' Hank.
Wise throws a fast curve, and Greenberg slaps it out into left field. It may drop in there for a base hit. It is a home run for Hank Greenberg.
And another edition of Major League Misadventures. So stick around, folks, for all the ups and downs. Coming right up on This Week in Baseball.
All over the screen on to Lansdowne. Hit well to right field. Certainly deep enough to score a run. Maybe better than that. It is gone!
Burks goes deep, very deep to left field. That ball is way out of here. A home run for Ellis Burks.
As expected, the Red Sox have been getting in the swing. They lead the league in batting average and runs scored. And when Texas came to town, they outscored them 23-11, swept the 3 games, and motored into first place.
They just have, I think, the best offense in the league. You know, I think they're leading in every offensive category, and they came out and scored 23 runs, I think it was, in 3 games. When you score that many runs in 3 games, you're going to win most of your games.
Mike Greenwell did much of the damage. With 5 hits and a pair of homers, he lifted his average near 320. Lofty numbers for the hitter who comes out swinging.
I'm just a real aggressive hitter. I see the ball and hit it, whether it's, off-speed pitches or fastballs. I just see the ball and try to hit it hard every time. And like I said, I'm just an aggressive hitter, and fortunately, I've had some success doing it, and I'm not going to change.
Aggressive and on the mark, Ellis Burks, one of 6 regulars hitting above 280. While the Sox are spreading their wealth, Burks is spreading his talents all around.
Burks can only be as good as he wants to be. He's got the most awesome all-around ability. Fielding, throwing, hitting, power. They're all above average Major League. So with a little hard work, which he's doing well right now, there's no telling how good this guy can be.
Joe Morgan may be less enthusiastic about his pitching. With the ranks depleted, Roger Clemens might be taking on his biggest burden yet. But off to a 4-1 start, Clemens seems fit for the role. And tack up unexpected numbers for former Expo John Dobson. Give him a 4-1 record and give the Sox an edge up in the East. Meanwhile, Raiders of the New West have come up with a treasure trove of pitching to put Doug Rader and company in a choice spot. Give Kirk McCaskill choicest numbers: 4 wins, the league's best ERA, and a near no-hitter.
Lines it into the gap, and the first pitch to Laureano breaks up a no-hit bid for McCaskill as it rolls to the wall. What a night it has been, though, for Kirk McCaskill, as he'll get a standing ovation from better than 30,000 at Anaheim Stadium.
Quite an about-face for McCaskill, who missed parts of the last 2 seasons with arm injuries. But this year, he looks to have the stuff of 1986 when he won 17 games. Also on the comeback, 38-year-old Bert Blyleven, who's put a stop to rumors that he may have lost his stuff. In fact, his 4 wins are a big reason the Angels have the best ERA in the league and the most shutouts of any team. Chuck Finley is also on the comeback. Last season, he lost 15 games, but this year he's already chalked up 4 wins. As for Raiders' bullpen connection, it's in good working order, thanks mostly to Brian Harvey, who figures to pass last year's total of 17 saves. On the whole, mighty sweet numbers for a pitching staff that wasn't supposed to be so sweet. But as Doug Rader knows from his troubling days with the Texas Rangers, past failures can lead to success.
When you do something, it can be you can be looked at on as a mistake, or it can be looked on as a learning process. And I think that the things that I've learned there and other areas in the last 2 years as a coach in Chicago, a year of scouting, I think all those things working together, I think that they've made me a different person, a better person. And don't they say that to live is to change? That's me. I'm still alive.
The Reds are alive and well and brewing up a thirst for first place, despite losing the injured Eric Davis and despite the constant distractions surrounding Pete Rose. Seems nothing's distracting Jose Rio, though. He's been great of late, winning 3 in a row. He got help in all 3 wins from John Franco as the Reds flirted with first. A good place to start, but after finishing second 4 straight years, they sure'd like a change of address.
Don't ask me why, but this team's been the best team in baseball in September the last 4 years. We're like 95 and 40 or something like that in September. So I guess the secret to the success of myself as a manager is to get to September 1st in first place.
To do that, the Reds will need the strong arm of Rio. Rio's got much needed advice, by the way, from his father-in-law, Juan Marichal. That was 3 years ago when Rio was struggling in the Oakland organization. A hard thrower, but not yet a pitcher.
The only thing different what he told me is my concentration, how to prepare myself mentally and physical before the game, what to do, and every 4 days before I pitch, and again. That stuff I never heard before from anybody else. I always heard that I got to go stop, I got to go slide, I go fast. But I never heard what I heard from Juan. It just gets your head together first, thinking about the game and how to concentrate and how, prepare yourself before the game.
We lived together for 3 months. And that way, I got more chance to talk to him every day, I think that Jose's problem was lack of concentration. He got a good fastball. He got a good slider. And he can throw hard. Sometimes pitchers fall in love with a pitch. And I think he was in love with his fastball because he can throw 95, 97 miles an hour. But anybody can hit those pitch. You have to mix the pitch with a slider, with a changeup, and concentrate on getting the ball over the plate. And I think Jose is doing that very well.
No doubt about John Franco. Last year, he had 39 saves to lead the league. This season, in his first 11 chances, 11 saves. That kind of success builds confidence.
Well, I don't fear nobody. I think the time when you fear somebody, that's the time you should get out of the game, or that position that I'm in as a stopper. There's times where, I wish I had a 220 hitter than a 290 or a 300 hitter up there, but I don't fear nobody.
But with the Reds heating up, the rest of the West may have much to fear. Now, this week's quiz brought to you by today's Chevy truck. Kevin Mitchell is on a pace to have more than 150 RBIs. Can you name the last player to drive in 150 runs? This run-scoring hit by Kevin Bass was not enough to beat the Expos, but it was significant. The first time this year that no shutout was recorded in either league. One reason hitters are begging for runs lies in the bullpens and their formidable crop of relievers. The Cubs' Mitch Williams earned 10 saves in his first 12 chances, while San Diego's Mark Davis has been perfect, 13 for 13. It seems that every team boasts a strong bullpen these days, newcomers like Seattle's Mike Schooler. But despite the emergence of other dominant relievers, Dennis Eckersley is still number one. Where would the A's be without him? With 10 saves, he could outdo last year's total of 45.
I never pitched 3 days in a row, and to get that many save opportunities, you have to be so fortunate, The days that you do pitch is always a save. It's insane. And that's why it's hard to duplicate a season like that.
I'm willing to bet that if we play good and we're ahead of games, you'll see Dennis Eckersley's save total in the 40s again. Because he's the same guy as he was last year. He's probably throwing the ball a little better because he's in even better shape. And he's got this good arm with excellent control. And he spots pitches, and he's got 4 or 5 fastballs. He's got one that throws up and in, up and away, low and in, low and away. And he can throw a breaking ball for a strike. So those are things that you look for in a reliever.
From an Oakland star of the present to a hitting hero for all time, our Hall of Fame series recalls baseball's original Hammerin' Hank. The late legendary Hank Greenberg. In 11 years with Detroit, he led the Tigers to 4 pennants and 2 world championships. He hit 331 homers. 5 times he drove in 130 runs or more. But ironically, the kid who grew up just 2 blocks from Yankee Stadium went all the way to Detroit to play ball.
They took me up to Yankee Stadium to see the Yankees play, and they sat me in the front row box. And when Gehrig came out to hit, the on-deck circle was right in front of the box. And Gehrig's shoulders looked like they were 4 yards wide. And they were telling me this, he's all washed up. You'll be the next first baseman. I took a look at him, and I decided to myself I wasn't going to side with the Yankees, because in those days you didn't change positions. You know, if the guy was the first baseman ahead of you, there's no chance that you were going to break in unless you were better than he was.
It seemed remarkable that Greenberg was big league material at all. In high school, he was big and awkward, prompting his coach to say he never played games, he worked at them.
He just had such a will to be a great player, and he used all the physical capabilities that he was born with to the maximum. He was like Ted Williams, that both of them were sort of scientists and artists as hitters, and they studied everything. He just had enormous drive.
Drive that kept him going through great adversity. As one of the game's first Jewish ball players, Greenberg was both hero and victim.
Hank Greenberg was the Jackie Robinson of his time. There had never been a Jewish player of the stature of Hank Greenberg. But of course, Hank was white, Jackie was black, which makes a great deal of difference in this country. But Hank was still a Jew at a time when anti-Semitism was rampant. This was the 30s. As we know, in another part of the world, there were anti-Jewish goings-on to a tragic degree. But it didn't make him happy to be carrying the burden of the Jews as well. It was enough to try to be the best baseball player you can be. But he accepted the burden.
In 1941, Greenberg took on another burden when he was drafted.
It was a question of Germany, to conquer the world. And there was no choice. Everybody joined up. I happened to be second ball player to go in. So I was in close to 4.5 years. I've never looked back, and I just feel I'm very fortunate that I'm still able to go back and play baseball, even though I played only for 2.5 years when I came back.
Well, hitting home runs is a good deal a matter of luck and good breaks. If you happen to be looking for a pitch, and fortunately the pitcher will throw that particular ball in a certain spot, and you swing at that spot, you might have a home run.
Wise taking his good old time about pitching to this big right-hand hitter. 1 ball, 1 strike on right-hand hitting Hank Greenberg. Wise throws a fast curve, and Greenberg slaps it out into left field. It may drop in there for a base hit. It is a home run for Hank Greenberg. Well, Hank Greenberg did it. He slapped one into the left center field stands, 400 feet away from home plate for a 3-run home run, and the Tigers now lead 4-1.
In 1938, Greenberg's clout became legendary. He came within 2 homers of Babe Ruth's record.
I'm remembered for hitting 58 home runs, and at the time it wasn't that big a deal. I just had a freak season where everything I hit early in the year was a home run. So about mid-season, they all started writing in the papers that I was ahead of Babe Ruth's record. Well, since I was ahead of his record, then I had to be shooting for it. So I concentrated on hitting long ball, and it was one of those years in which most of my long drives went out of the park.
After Hank Greenberg retired in 1947, he stayed in the game. First as general manager of Cleveland, then as part owner of the White Sox. But years later, the man who had won 2 MVP awards recalled his greatest source of pride.
I like to feel that having had the privilege of being a ball player, there's some inspiration to kids that, look up to you, that make heroes out of you, even though they don't know you. And at least I've tried to pattern my life on that, on the fact that I'm out there in the limelight, so to speak, in baseball, and that there's a lot of kids out there that don't normally know of me, and if I set a good example for them, that maybe it'll in some way affect their lives. And I guess that's what I'm most proud of.
We were proud of you, Hank. And now the answer to this week's quiz, brought to you by today's Chevy truck. In 1962, Tommy Davis drove in 153 runs, more than any player since. Baseball's a delicate matter where things blow hot and cold. One slip-up and everything goes up in smoke. As a rule, it seems best to stay cool and never play the fool and always avoid ridicule. But you know what they say. Rules are made to be... Well, what do you say? So much for plays that amaze in ways that boggle the mind and baffle the glove. Turn now to red-hot glove work, big league style. First, a scorching catch from the sidelines. And now we go to the headliners. Kansas City's Luis de los Santos. St. Louis Cardinals' Ozzie Smith. Candy Maldonado, Giants. The Pirates, Jose Lean. Houston Astro, Gerald Young. Out of nowhere, the Cubs, Vance Law. Also out of the blue, Jerry Brown, Cleveland. Pure acrobatics at first, the Cubs, Mark Grace. Seattle's Harold Reynolds. Mariner teammates Ken Griffey Jr. to Mario Diaz. And Baltimore's grandstanding Mickey Tettleton. Let's give a hand for some of the best-looking hands around. Now, let's open the notebook for This Week in Baseball's Twib Notes from around the majors. Ain't nothing bashful about Mark McGwire's bat in Detroit. With this homer to help beat the Tigers, McGwire continued his career assault at Tiger Stadium. In 17 games, 11 homers, 20 RBIs, and a batting average of .362. Minnesota's Kirby Puckett celebrated his Major League 5th anniversary, May 7th. He closed out his first 5 years with 1,062 hits, falling just short of the record total set from 1932 to 1936 by the St. Louis Cardinals' Joe Medwick. Ducky's first 5 seasons produced 1,064 hits, 2 more than Puckett. It was last July in Cincinnati when Met shortstop Kevin Elster made an error. 88 games later, back in Cincinnati.
Now ball is short, booted by Elster. The throw, not in time. Error on Kevin Elster. The streak is broken.
5 days earlier, Elster got a reprieve on this play against the Reds.
This will stay in play. Elster a long chase and will not come up with it. You could tell he was confused as soon as he started taking off.
And Kevin Elster has committed an error for overrunning it, folks, and you have seen it.
But Johnny Bench's call was too hasty because Elster was not given an error on the play, and his record streak continued. Meanwhile, Boston catcher Rick Cerone also had a streak on the line.
And the ball is swung on, foul back. Chased by Cerrone, and has the ball get away from him.
A tough play, but nonetheless an error for Cerrone, thus ending a Major League catching record. 159 games without an error. Time now for our play of the week, brought to you by Gatorade Thirst Quencher. Davy Johnson and the Mets needed runs, so Johnson put slow runners Gary Carter and Keith Hernandez into motion and sent Kevin Elster into action.
There goes the runners, and it works. Very aggressive play by the whole Met crew there.
That's one way to end a scoreless streak of 27 innings. Next week on This Week in Baseball, we'll talk with Trader Jack McKeon, renowned strategist both on and off the field. That's all for now, folks. See you next week on This Week in Baseball.
Catch all the plays as the Tigers take on the Indians live from Cleveland Stadium tomorrow starting at 1. Then later that night, the Bucs stop here on Sports Final Edition with Scott Wally. Now stay tuned for an NBC doubleheader as the Toronto Blue Jays go up against the Minnesota Twins. And then the New York Yankees take on the California Angels next, only on Channel 4.